Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. Michael here, your producer and co-host, and today I am really excited to bring you an interview that I had the honor and pleasure of doing with a registered dietitian, a wellness educator, as well as health and wellness coach, Tricia Silverman. And in this episode, there's tons of information, tons of knowledge for you to distill and really gather from this conversation. It actually blew my mind, some of the stuff that we uncovered and talked about. But the premise is Tricia really explained kind of the layout of her book called Healthy Dividends, Investments in Nutrition, Movement, and Healthy Habits That Pay Off. And she talks about the 10 strategies that we can all keep in mind to really live our most inspired and thriving and vitalistic life. We go deep on nutrition here, so for those of you who are foodies out there just like me, I think you're really going to love this episode. So we will jump into the episode soon here, but before we do, let's hear a word from one of our sponsors. This episode of the Inspire Life podcast is brought to you by Inspire Health Coaching, helping busy professionals overcome food addiction to reclaim their energy and optimize their lives. Our holistic approach to coaching will help you find new realities of peace and ease in meals, movement, and mindset. Through creating a wellness vision, long-term goals, and weekly experiments, you'll find yourself creating a new life, all with the support and accountability of a trusted coach who has been through it. If you want to learn more about what we do, how we work with people to accomplish their health and wellness goals, or to set up your initial consultation, text us at 651-500-8162. Or if you have ideas for the podcast or blog, know someone who might be an awesome guest, or even just if you want to connect more with someone who's been there, don't hesitate to text or email us at michael@coachkrug.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and co-host. And today I am really excited to be interviewing Tricia Silverman. And Tricia, I think it'd probably just be best for you to introduce yourself. It sounds like you've done quite a few different really cool things, especially when it comes to nutrition throughout your career. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Great. Thank you so much. So hi, everyone. I'm Tricia Silverman, and I'm a registered dietitian, a fitness instructor, and a wellness coach. I'm also an author. I wrote a book, and that book is called Healthy Dividends, Investments in Nutrition, Movement, and Healthy Habits That Pay Off. And I have a keen interest in longevity. I teach healthy aging at Northeastern University, and I wrote an active aging nutrition certification for a fitness education company. And I just love to learn about and share what I know about longevity.
Awesome. That's it's fantastic. And it's something that when you look at longevity and you actually look at the lifespan rates in our country, they've actually, I think, been declining over the last couple of years. So really exciting to have a guest like you on our show. And in your book, Healthy Dividends, I know a big part of it is talking about your 10 tips for longevity. So can you talk more about those? Maybe we can go through all 10 or wherever you want to start with that. Yeah.
Sure, I'd love to. So the first tip is eat lots of vegetables. Really important, not only for longevity, but for your immune system. Really important to do that. And most people just aren't getting enough. When I work with clients, I notice that they might have vegetables just at one meal or the other meal, and we should be getting vegetables at lunch and dinner at the least, and then even more at snacks and at breakfast if we can add that in as well. One of the things I teach at Northeastern University is I teach about areas of longevity across the world. And have you heard about blue zones at all?
I have a little bit, yeah. So it's these are kind of the cultures or even subcultures of specific places that have the longest lifespans, correct?
Exactly. So Dan Buettner is a wonderful author, and he wrote about some of these areas that he coined as blue zones are some of the areas of longevity. There's other ones written about in other books, but he coined Loma Linda, California, and the Nicoyan Peninsula in Costa Rica, and the Mediterranean area, and Okinawa, Japan. And he wrote about these in his books, and they're fantastic. There are other areas of longevity, such as Hunza in northern Pakistan, Abkhazia in the former Soviet Union, and Vilcabamba in Ecuador and also Burma, China. And these areas also have people that live really long lives, and they're just super healthy right up until the end. And that's my hope for everyone. Let's eat and do things in a way that can really support us living a really long life. And in these areas, you see that vegetables are eaten a lot. Now, my number 2 tip goes right along with that, and it's eat your vegetables and fruit in season when you can. And also, when you cook your vegetables, we want to think about steaming. Even when you micro, some people don't like the microwave, but one thing that I think is helpful with the microwave is that it's in there such a short time that you don't lose all the vitamin content. You do lose some vitamin content when you boil your vegetables. And one of the things that can be really helpful is to drink the leftover water as a tea, as a vegetable tea. So it really works well with zucchini, for example. I love the leftover water when I steam zucchini. So lots of vegetables, and then locally when you can, when they're in season, but that doesn't mean when they're not in season not to have any. So you mentioned it, that it's very cold, right? This time of year, and it's hard to grow a lot of great vegetables when it gets to be the winter season. So we want to continue, and that's where we are fortunate that we have supermarkets, we have delivery systems available. So try to make sure that you're ordering those vegetables. And you want to also make sure that they last throughout the week. So one of the things that I like to buy are winter squashes, because they don't, they'll last beyond 1 week. So that if I go shopping and, it's the end of the week, I know that I'll have this. And then there are other vegetables that will last till the end of the week, like cabbages are really good for that because they'll last till the end of the week. And then you have other foods like string beans or green beans. They're wonderful and super healthy and really yummy. But plan those toward the beginning of the week so that you use them when they're bright and they look good and they're not turning. Because after a few days, those won't last as long. But the winter squashes like your butternut squash, and this is a spaghetti squash that I have here. These will really last, which is really, really nice. So get your vegetables, plan for them to last throughout the week. And then my 3rd tip is to consume small amounts of nuts and seeds throughout the week. So I have sunflower seeds here.
Delicious.
And yes, yeah. You know what I like about them is that they are one of the most budget friendly of the nuts and seeds, as are peanuts. So I think that these can be really super helpful for people in their budgets during the shutdowns. Many people have, lost jobs. And, if we're looking to shop on a budget, these and peanuts are, really great because they don't cost much. Especially the peanuts in the bag that you crack open yourself, they're really cheap. Now, other nuts and seeds, pumpkin seeds and walnuts, and flax seeds, those are really great because they have omega-3 fats that are really good for your heart and also for your brain. And they are essential fats. So if you're not getting them through food, then we might be missing them. We also get them in fish, and I'll talk about fish in just a little bit. But nuts and seeds throughout the day. Studies out of Loma Linda University have shown that nuts and seeds may help you to live longer. So we do want to, think about getting those in. What I noticed with nuts and seeds, very similar nutrition profile to beans. And if you're not getting nuts and seeds, are you getting beans in? Because they have a lot of micronutrients like zinc and copper that are really good for your immune system, but not only that, for the integrity of your skin. So really important to eat healthy foods and try to limit the junk. Now, number 4 is limit your red meat consumption. And instead, we want to do things like fish.
Nice. I love that.
Thank you. So I have the fish puppet when I teach about, eating fish, because people remember when I tell them fish is a brain food, you might not remember much, but if you see the fish on top of my head, the fish puppet.
I will definitely remember that.
Yeah, right. You'll remember that weeks from now, year from now, I can't remember what else we spoke about. Oh, she had a fish on her head. Oh, fish is a brain food.
Yes.
So, why is it important for longevity? Well, it has the omega-3 fats that are super healthy for us. And They also have some vitamin D and has the great source of lean protein. And in research, fish has been found to protect against dementia in a dose-related fashion. So the more fish, the less dementia, which is really pretty awesome. Also associated with less risk for Alzheimer's disease. So there's something about fish in your brain that's there's a connection there for sure. Now, how much? Try to get 8 ounces over the course of a week. And it doesn't mean that you always have to buy fish fresh. You can get things like fish in a pouch. And what's nice, this is actually wild salmon by, this happens to be a popular brand, Bumblebee. So you can get them in the pouch, and the popular brands tend to go on sale too. So that's really great to pick up and to have on hand. We're going into the winter season right now, and I think it is good to stock up your cabinets a little bit, just, in case you get sick or a family member does and you don't have time to go out and get a lot of fresh. So we want to have things in the cabinet, things in the freezer as backups. But the pouches and the cans can work. I do think wild is best if we can, but we have to be realistic during COVID. And if people lost jobs, eat any fish. Just, don't worry about that you have to get it wild. If, you have the deep pockets to afford it, that's different. And I think I wish we all had access to wild fish. I think it would be fantastic, but not everyone does. All right. So what's the problem with red meat? So red meat is associated with inflammation. And if you think about, these times now, we're trying to protect our bodies against inflammation. We don't need any unnecessary inflammation. And red meat is associated with earlier mortality. A fancy way of saying you die sooner. Have you ever heard that out in, have you heard about red meat being associated with early mortality?
Yeah, we know, even if you look at, honestly, poultry, the carcinogen content that is in red meat and even a lot of more industrialized agriculture where poultry is coming from, it's just through the roof, right? And if you look at, the content of the fats specifically, which are within red meat versus like a fish, it's a lot of saturated fats.
Exactly.
We also know that as our cattle have been stressed out more and more over the last 100 years or less, that they are just naturally producing more omega-6s that we are then ingesting as well. So it's definitely a big topic right now.
Yeah, it's huge. And I'm glad that that for those items that you mentioned, it's so true, the way that animals are treated, and that it's different from a long time ago. So it's really best to try to aim for the best quality food that you can. And fish, much better for your brain. Saturated fat, that the saturated fats, when you look at longevity and people living long lives, it's the unsaturated fats that are associated with longer lives and better brain health. So what are the unsaturated fats? Well, we tend to generalize a lot, because too much of any fat source can lead to too much saturated fat. So what I mean by that is that some people are following the keto type of diet, where they're eating a lot of fat. And at some point, even if you're eating healthy fat, it's going to be too much saturated fat. And I'll just give you an example of that. Extra virgin olive oil is an anti-inflammatory. It's great for you. However, if you drink bottles of this, not so great. When you look at it, there are a couple of grams of saturated fat. And we all tend as health professionals to kind of simplify for people. And sometimes it's a little too much. And I think that, overdoing it on oils, that's not great either. It's all about balance, variety, and moderation in our diets. But the unsaturated fats are better. And we tend to generalize and say extra virgin olive oil, it's a monounsaturated. And it does have a lot of monounsaturated oil, which is good for your heart and it's good for you. But, all things have their place, and just that your fats have a small place in the diet. We don't want to get rid of them. We need fat in the diet, but we don't need to overdo it like some of the fad diets are pushing. So that has its
Very
place.
true.
Great. I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I just said very, very, very true. Good point.
Yeah, thank you. And avocados, super healthy too. That's, one of the benefits of some of the the fad diets are that avocados are in right now, and I'm really super happy about that they're in. So yeah, some avocado, great for you for sure.
If I can,
Now,
quick, can I kind of just sum up a lot of the first couple points in what you've been saying?
yeah,
So what I'm hearing, when you talk first about vegetables and in-season vegetables, and then talking about, being really conscious of eating nuts and also being conscious of the meats that we're eating and the source of those meats. What I'm hearing is that high fiber diet is really important, which is the
yes,
vegetables and the nuts are both very high in fiber, making sure that we're eating a diverse types of foods, right? So we're not, just like you said, just having avocados and olive oil, because it's really important to have protein as well. And then, especially when it comes to meat and knowing how, agriculture works in our country, trying to get the high quality meats first, but also understanding that we also have budgets that we have to live by, right? So if you are going to maybe get red meat, make sure that it's going to be like organic, grass-fed. Hopefully, the farmers and know how the animal was raised.
yes,
But beyond that, fish is going to be probably the best option when it comes to meat to eat, because it can be really cost effective. Like, I'm in Minnesota, so fresh fish is at a premium here. However, I have canned sardines at home all the time, and I eat at least one can of sardines a week. So
oh, good. You're
yeah,
getting your omega-3s in. That's great.
definitely. My girlfriend's kids aren't a fan of sardines, but maybe they'll change their ways at some point. Yes. So anyway, thank you. I just wanted to sum all that up. If you want to keep going, I would love to hear the other tips that you got.
Yeah, and great. Thank you so much for summing it up. And you mentioned a great word, diversity. The diversity of plants, vegetables, and fruits. That's going to really be so helpful for your intestinal health and your microbiome. And there's more and more research done on the microbiome, and that's a simple way to look at it is the good versus bad bacteria in your intestines, and we want more good. And the diversity of vegetables and fruit that you eat is really key for your microbiome. And when you eat more fiber-rich foods, you actually form a more robust intestinal mucosal lining. And that mucosal lining helps to protect your intestines from pathogens from getting through, from harmful bacteria and viruses from getting through. So we do want that diversity of plants. So thank you for noting that. Number 5 is decreased processed food consumption. And this is a big one. I could speak for hours. I won't do that to you because I can go on and on. I do a 90-minute class called Food Deconstructed, where I go all through a lot of details on what's in food. And I like to kind of boil things down. I'm going to talk about, one of the popular coffee chains in our country has a pumpkin coffee drink that's being pushed right now. And I know some people are listening, they can't see it, but what I measured out is how much sugar is in a large coffee drink. And it's 181 grams of sugar, which equals 45 teaspoons. And what I show in my classes and seminars is how much, and you can see the plate. It's just astronomical how much sugar. It's actually heavy, and I've dropped it a few times. The plate just collapses because it gets so, I have it on a little paper plate here. It's just so much, but that is what people are drinking. And I've, through doing many seminars across the country, I've met a lot of people that have given me more insights than I can, share in our time here. But it's amazing. You see that link between, I've heard it and I read about the research, the link between sugary drinks and diabetes, but then you meet the people who it has affected, and it's just, it's tough. So I say, be careful with these drinks. I call them frankenfoods, because you can't, grow one of these pumpkin coffees in your yard. You can't grow a cookie unless maybe you're Keebler brand, because they have the cookies on the trees. But, if you can't grow it in your yard, it's an easy way to kind of think of things. Or if your great grandparents couldn't put these items on the shelf, then maybe you don't want them around. These different chemical names, if you can't read it, don't eat it. And what is maltodextrin and polysorbate 80? And if you don't know, don't eat it until you read about it, because once you start reading and digging, these things aren't so great. And many of the ice creams have carrageenan, which is a compound that has been shown to be inflammatory to your intestines. And that's in a lot of ice creams and a lot of other products too. And there's just a lot of junk in food, even foods that we perceive as healthier. When you start looking at the ingredients, not so great. So you do want to be careful of processed foods, look through the ingredient list, try to keep the ingredient list short. So I have an example here, in this old-fashioned oatmeal, it's just oats. That's it when you look at the ingredient list. So you want a simple list. When you buy the oats in the packets, oftentimes the list starts to grow and they're adding sugar or artificial sugars and, different ingredients that, you really don't need. And you can get that same flavor. If I make this and I put in a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger, I'm going to get a really flavorful oatmeal. And then I'm in charge. If I want to add a sweetener, I can add a little bit of maple syrup if I want, or not. Better yet, add some fruit for that natural sweetness. So I think it's important to kind of think about the food that you're buying. What ingredients does it boil down to? And can you make that better off on your own?
Yeah. With that too, just one other point. If we look at food and the definition of food is something that is supposed to provide nourishment for our bodies and help us be healthy. And I don't know what the exact percentage, I actually heard this in a podcast a couple of years ago, but so many of the foods that I'm doing air quotes if you're just listening on the podcast, so many of the foods that we eat regularly in our society that are marketed to us heavily don't actually meet the definition of food. They do not provide any sort of nourishment. So, Tricia, I thank you for bringing up that point on processed foods, how there's so many additives and chemicals. Like you said, carrageenans are really, and that one's even in a lot of different almond milks, right?
Yeah,
so
and it's,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I agree. Like you could see, I get very excited about this topic because almond milks are one of the worst culprits. So I have a better one here. This is just, this happens to be Elmhurst Dairy. It's just filtered water and almonds. You can make your own with just almond butter and water to make a quick almond milk. You can also soak the almonds and go through the process like the companies do, but you can make a quick one. But when you look, there's a compound called gellan gum. And I was buying almond milk several years back and I started questioning, what's this gellan gum? And I started looking more and more at it. Well, it's a bacteria that comes from the bottom of a lily pad, S. allodia bacteria, and they feed it sugar. And then it oozes a slime.
Oh.
And by law, you're allowed to have a certain percentage of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, still in the food, still in that gellan gum. But the alcohol is used to dry up the slime. But by law, there's some residual allowed of that. And I mean, who would ever want to? That's not meant for ingesting alcohol. This is the rubbing alcohol, the kind you find at CVS, not the kind that you're drinking, watching Dancing with the Stars.
Nice.
So when I started digging into these gums, like gellan gum and xanthan gum, I thought, oh, these really aren't so great. Like this, my grandparents weren't eating the slime of a bacteria that was dried with isopropyl alcohol. So I just thought, So now I do my best to avoid those gums at all costs. And it's getting harder and harder because hummus used to not have it. And organic hummus used to not have it. But now organic hummus, some of the brands are putting they're putting in xanthan gum and other gums. So you have to look and see what's in there. And it's a shame because 15, 20 years ago, hummus didn't have gums. There's no need for it, but they're putting it in there. But check out your brands. Look at the organic brands. Those tend to have, some of the organic brands won't have that in there. There's a great brand called Ithaca hummus. And that's, I found that at Target. I don't know if it's only regional because
Right.
Ithaca is in New York, but it is a brand that you might want to look for. One of the better brands that's just really tasty. But at your own farm stand, you might find it in your area. And you can make your own too, out of chickpeas, a little olive oil, sesame tahini, a squeeze of lemon juice, a splash of, or a pinch of salt, and you have a great hummus right there. And that's all it should be when we buy it. but there's all kinds of stuff being added to our cheeses as well. So I'm not a fan when I see gums and starches added to cheese. I don't think we need those fillers added. But you
Yeah.
see, I can be long-winded on this stuff.
No, I love it. I'm the same way, and I will go ahead. I mean, I always share with the audience that I learned so much just from doing these interviews and producing this podcast, and I love it. And I still am relatively negligent to the gums, right? Like I would go and get like coconut milk in the can and see that there's like guar gum in it and just be like, well, I guess it is what it is, right? But it's just a good reminder for me personally to continue to do my due diligence on the ingredients that are in these foods before I consume them. So I thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, it's good to question, why was this put in there? Do
Mhm.
we really need it? Was it in there 20 years ago? And could I make it myself to avoid this stuff that, like you said, is that really a food? Is
Right.
that really nourishing? And most of those kind of weird ingredients aren't. So, yeah, so I'll move along with, along with the processed food consumption. If you are craving something sweet, try to reach for fruit. And if you have fruit in your fridge, eye level, when you open your refrigerator, that's a reminder to eat fruit. If you open your refrigerator and see leftover pizza, that's a reminder and a cue to eat that. So think about how you have your cabinets and refrigerator stocked, and you want to put the healthy food very visible and have it, ready, some of it ready for you and cut up, ready to go. And in cultures of longevity, when they're craving something, that's when they are reaching for something sweet, as opposed to in our country, where people are running for candy or cookies and ice cream. We want to really try to move away from that. Now, number 6 is stay active and move your body regularly. And with the shutdowns due to COVID, that's, becoming hard. So I think it's important to think about, how can we engineer movement back into our days, because it's been engineered out. So what I do is, anything I can do walking on the treadmill or walking outside. I can listen to your podcast while I'm walking outside. I can get on the treadmill and read some things for work. I have a desk that has a bike that has a desk on it, so I can do some computer work on there. And if you sometimes just commit to a small amount of exercise, it can help you to get moving. Like, I'm just going to do 7 minutes this morning of yoga. How many times have I said that and it ends up being 30 minutes or more, because it feels so good? I think people have to get over that little hump of, they feel like they have to do all this time, when just a little bit of movement can be helpful, and that can help you to really re-energize your brain to make better choices throughout the day. So what can you do upon waking for just a few minutes? And if you only have 7 minutes or 5 minutes, that's fine. The new physical activity guidelines, they're not that new now. They came out a couple of years ago, but the US guidelines say that any movement is good. We used to say you have to do it in 10-minute increments. Nope. 2 minutes is better than no minutes. So we just want to do something to move. It helps to move the nutrients throughout your body, helps you to make better choices, and we feel really good. And for longevity, when we move and we eat well and we get enough protein, it helps us to preserve our lean tissue mass. So if we want to preserve our muscles as we get older, it's important to eat food that contains protein and then to move. Now, if we're really looking for the best ways to preserve that lean tissue mass, just walking will help you for sure. But resistance exercise twice a week, that means yoga, weight training, resistance bands, gardening can help. Things that help to, build your strength, really important, twice a week. Along those lines, with the multitasking I mentioned, other things that I do, if I put a TV show on, I'm either lifting weights or doing yoga along with that TV show. So try to incorporate movement back into your lifestyle. Dance while you do the dishes, or march while you fold clothes. Try to engineer movement back in. And then sometimes you can put a fun song on that can keep you moving. Like, I like Stevie Wonder's Do I Do. On YouTube, there's like a 10-minute version. So I know if I put that on, I'm dancing for 10 minutes automatically. So I put that on. That's like my go-to song. It's like the song of 2020 for me. I put it on and I dance, and 10 minutes is done. I didn't even feel like I exercised. All right, let's,
It's
a lot,
fantastic.
thank you, thank you. So a lot, do we have any more time? Because I have a few more, but I understand if,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think we can keep going. I do want to quick say, back to the movement and for longevity, right? It's the law of inertia. So body in motion stays in motion. There's always forces acting upon it. But the more we continue to move, the more we will move as we age. So I just like
so
to make that
true.
point. Yeah.
You said that so well. And to add to it, I think that it's really important to know that if you feel too tired to exercise, sometimes that, and most times that exercise will give you energy. Now, sometimes if we're too tired, maybe we do need that sleep. We have to listen to our bodies. But oftentimes, if you just feel sluggish, the exercise can re-energize you and give you back the energy. So it's a different perspective or a different way of looking at things. If I feel too tired to exercise, well, exercise will wake me up, and then you become more productive. And when you move, you start to generate ideas and you start to generate solutions to your problems. It's amazing what exercise can do for your brain. And yeah, some of it can help with weight loss, but when I deal with a lot of people that are looking to lose weight, and the way I like to use exercise is as that mood lifter and a way to get better control of your executive functioning so you can make better decisions and better choices for eating. So it really just supports good health overall, and important for your immune system as well. Number 7, and this can be tough during these times where we're all at home more, is staying connected to family and friends. So we have to make that effort. And you do see in cultures of longevity that you often see generations that live together. Sometimes in our culture, people are embarrassed to say, oh, my son moved back in. And a lot of kids are moving back in, and there's no shame in that. That's, we're helping our families out. And more generations living together is actually good for longevity. So I think it's great when generations live together. And our country, I think, has things a little warped when it comes to longevity, and there's such a focus on the younger culture. And our elders have so much wisdom to share. And this thing with people moving home, it's actually a good thing, and people are supporting each other. But you do see several generations. So the great grandparents might be helping out with the great grandkids, or the grandparents with the grandkids. So living together can be super, super helpful. And you see in Okinawa, they have these groups called mois. And mois are groups that get together for social and financial support. I read about in the great books that I think if you haven't read, you might love, the Okinawa diet plan. It's not really a diet plan like you think. It's just a great way of eating, and the Okinawa program. And in those books, they talk about mois, and they wrote about a group of men that were in their 80s that met when they were in kindergarten, and they were still meeting. And the way that would work is like, let's say, 20 of us, 2 of us talking right now, and then 18 of the listeners got together, and we said every month we're going to meet up and we're going to throw $10 in the pot. Well, you would get it like when we meet today, and next week when we met, I would get it, and the following week another person would get it, till we got through all 20 people, and then it would go around again. And that's how they help support each other financially, but then socially they're meeting up. And you think about, in our culture, what do we do that's similar? Well, if you think about maybe a baby shower or a wedding shower, for a wedding shower, the young couple is getting married, and the family gets together for that bridal shower, and they're giving financial support, but they're getting together, and that's social support. And if you think of, different groups that people join, there's social support there. But these mois are, pretty fascinating. I've talked about them across the country, and it's interesting. I have people telling me at different conferences, like, oh yeah, my family was doing something like that when I was little, and I didn't quite understand. But, some of those traditions, are in our culture too. We just might not hear about it, or, maybe it's just not done as much anymore, but it did make its way here somewhat. But those are pretty big in Okinawa. So during these times of the shutdowns, how can we stay more connected? And that's where, you're doing such a wonderful service by having a podcast and creating a community of of listeners, and they can comment on the podcast and send you comments and follow you on social media, and it becomes a way to connect with people. We're so lucky now compared to when those the pandemics in the early 1900s, they didn't have the internet. How lonely that must have been. And you and I are able to connect here today, and you have a huge following of listeners that you're able to connect with. So it is lovely that we can still maintain connections, but it's harder than it was a year ago. So we have to make that effort to make phone calls and to stay in touch with people, especially our elders. I met a gentleman, his name is Castor. I interviewed him for my book. When I met him at one of my seminars, he was 95 going on 96. And I thought he wasn't a day over 80 because he was carrying himself well, like a young guy, the way that he walked and talked. And we've stayed in touch. And I found that he eats the Mediterranean way. He lives with his daughter. So again, living with generations. And he goes to the senior center. He was going prior to COVID every day, or a lot of days during the week. He was doing chair yoga. And I interviewed him and we stayed in touch. He came to my book signings and we exchanged gifts for birthdays and holidays. It's like we're truly have a friendship. I've checked on him. So now's the time to think about, some people might need that check-in. So who can you check in with today? Another person I checked in with was a college professor. She's in her 90s. And she was such a guiding light for me when I went to school, and I checked in with her a few weeks back to just thank her. And we had such a lovely conversation, and it was good. So check in on, your elders and see how they're doing. So those connections can be really, we want to, you can reignite some of those connections from years ago too. So think about ways to, stay connected. If you're feeling lonely, someone does want to hear from you. So reach out. And then I think to stay supported during this time, that it's important for people to think about if they need to see a therapist as well. Like that support can be helpful because any support is really good, but the family and friends really key. Now, number 8 is aim to be happy and cheerful. And that, that can be really, really tough during these times. So we think about the news. Maybe you want to limit yourself to how much news, and maybe it's once or twice a day so that we're not just, getting too much involved in the news, and, do things that are fun and that make you happy. So for me, I love to listen to comedians and I love to read autobiographies. So I like to keep a stack near me of autobiographies, and that makes me happy. So you want to think about what makes you happy. And sometimes when we're down, it's hard to think about that. But what I call them energizers, what brings energy? We know what gets us down, COVID, politics, the elections, right? But what makes us happy? And to me, it's sunsets, walks, hugs from my kids. So you want to think about what makes you happy, and can you do those things and put them in your calendar and make sure that they're getting done. And maybe it has to be a little variation on things, like the library is closed. So for me, like that's a place of joy for me. So there's some bookstores that are open, so I can kind of stroll through a bookstore instead and still get that same library kind of feeling. So do your energizers. Number 9 is embrace spirituality. And I don't, push any religion on anyone. You don't have to have a formalized religion, but being a little more spiritual can help. Maybe you are a certain religion and, tap into that. And, meditation is a way to just really kind of center yourself. So if you're looking for, a way to kind of tune in, meditation can kind of really help, and spirituality can help. And those can be two separate things. And, I do get some people that say, because of my religion, I can't meditate. And that's fine, because you can pray. And that is in of itself a form of meditation. So the way that I look at meditation, I don't always like to call it that, because some people who've never meditated are afraid of that word, but it's just more deep breathing. Can we do more tuning in, more deep breathing? If you're open to meditation, I love Insight Timer. It's an app that has all these free meditations, and it's a way to help you cope during these tough times, and it can really help to change your mindset. And you can put in how you're feeling on the search bar in that app, and you could, if you want more focus for the day, you could put in the word focus. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you could put in the word overwhelmed, and you'll get meditations that pop up to help you deal with either what you're looking for, like more focus, more strength, happiness, or what you're dealing with. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's depression, maybe it's overwhelmed, work stress. And these meditations are lovely. They're a gift. It's worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's free. So I'm a big fan of tuning in, meditating or praying, whatever really works for you. If none of that sounds appealing, just deep breathing can really, help. Close your eyes and deep breathe. Another thing that can be helpful along those lines is soothing touch. And the power of touch with what you do. So the power of touch is truly amazing. There's something called soothing touch, which is a part of self-compassion, and that's giving yourself a gentle squeeze, or like your arms a gentle squeeze, or a self-hug can feel really nice. And there's other forms of soothing touch, but those can be very soothing and make you feel really cared for in a sense, especially when many of us, may be alone and may not have anyone in the apartment or in the home with us.
Yeah, I just want to quick summarize those last 3 points. So
Sure.
Number 7 about community. So that's, connecting with others, with our community and with the people who are important to us. And then number 8, doing the things that make us, happy and cheerful. That's really connecting to our own self practices and really connecting with ourselves to become energized. And then number 9 with spirituality and meditation, it really comes down to connecting internally and also connecting with source. So really, what I heard with those last 3 points is we need connection to really age and approach longevity in a proactive way.
You really do see that when you look at people that have lived long lives. One of the things that I look at besides the cultures of longevity are the longest living people. I get very excited about the longest living people because I've noticed that they have a stress minimizing outlook. There was a woman out of Italy, and I think her name was Morano. I want to say Emma Morano, but I could have that wrong. I could see her face, but she lived to over 110 years of age. I think she was 117 when she passed away over the last few years. Emma Morano, I'm pretty sure that's it. And one of the things that she said was associated with her longevity was being positive about the future. So she was still over 100 years of age, being positive about the future. Like what a great attitude. Another person that lived a really long life, her son said of her that she never worried much. And one of the things that she said is that she minded her own business and didn't eat a lot of junk food. So, there are things to learn from how, people have lived their lives and lived long lives. And many of these longest living people attribute their longevity to spirituality. You see that over and over again. And it's not one particular religion. It's just religion in, or spirituality in general that is really important. So thank you for summing those up.
Yes.
Number 10, and we touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to expand on it. So minimize your exposure to chemicals, and that it's not only the chemicals in your food, and those are big. So we want to try to avoid pesticides if we can. But what are you using when you clean your home? Years ago, I worked for a company that had an organic map, and it was really cool. They mapped out all the organic places in Massachusetts, and it was so much fun working there. And I wrote an article, and I was only a dietitian for a few years at that point. The article was about what can you do around your house to be more organic, and it opened my eyes when I started reading about this. And I realized, oh, the makeup I put on my skin, I can make better choices about that and go more organic or natural in the makeup, with the moisturizer, with the things that I spray to clean my home. When you vacuum, open a window. We want that fresh air, coming in, so cracking a window open if you're spraying things. And do we really need air fresheners? No. We want to, what if you're using an air freshener, what's the source of the smell? Maybe the garbage needs to be put out, right? So we don't want to put unnecessary chemicals in your environment. Years ago, candles, we want to be careful even with candles, what's burning and what's getting into the air. So you want to be really careful. And now they have flameless candles, which can really give, a beautiful glow. So you want to think about chemicals that are in your environment and how can you minimize them. That's really important. So food, yes, but not only food, what you put on your skin, what you put in your hair. I have olive oil in my hair today. Just a little bit goes a long way. I live this stuff because I feel so strongly about it that it's, we need to be careful with all the chemicals in our environment. And that, basically sums up my 10. And I can go into lots of detail more on all these. I speak a lot for employee wellness and to senior center groups. So all of these are kind of in and of a topic on their own. And we scratch more than the surface today for sure. And I appreciate, your time and I'm so glad that you have an interest in this area of longevity.
Yeah, I thank you for, everything that you have done throughout your career and for your book and for sharing all of that with our audience today. I do have one final question that I ask all of our guests. So what would be your one takeaway or the one thing that you want our audience to take from today's episode?
I think that one of the best things that people can do is at their next meal or snack to consider having a vegetable. Vegetables are so key, and for your immune system, it's really important and for weight management and to feel good to get our vegetables in. So think about more vegetables. Maybe you don't like them because how they were prepared for you in the past. That's what I hear from, a lot, or what I find from a lot of people that don't like them, but they truly are a food of longevity, as are, by the way, the beans. I didn't get too much into the beans, but beans are another really important food of longevity. So if you can try to eat more beans and vegetables, that really can support a long, healthy life.
I love it. That's a huge takeaway, right? Those foods that are high in fibers, high in micronutrients, definitely focusing on those can help with longevity. Tricia, thank you so much. Last question for our audience, how can they get in touch with you? How can they check out your book? Anywhere you want to direct our audience to so they can learn more about you and what you do.
Sure. Thank you so much. My book is available on Amazon.com and my website is triciasilverman.com. That's TriciaSilverman.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And I love to stay in touch with people. I've met people through podcasts and we stay in touch on one or more of these social media platforms. And it's just been a real delight getting to know people. And what you mentioned earlier is so true. Like I learned, from you, I learned today, it's so fun doing these things because we learn from each other.
Yes. Like I said, that's one of the most fun things about podcasting is that we're constantly learning and making connections. So I'll definitely be adding you on the social media and I'll put all your information in the show notes. And for all of our listeners, until next time, as always, keep inspiring. Thanks again, Tricia.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Inspire Life podcast today. Make sure you check out Tricia's work and her website located in the show notes. That's triciasilverman.com. And don't forget to get your copy of her book on Amazon. That's Healthy Dividends, Investments in Nutrition, Movement, and Healthy Habits That Pay Off. Also, hop on over to Facebook and join the Inspired Living community. There, Dr. Mel and I share all of our health and healing tips to help you continue to live your most inspired and thriving life. And as always, until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you.